Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and esteemed participants, welcome to our first panel discussion of the winter schools.
Particularly, welcome to our roundtable session where we gather to delve this transformative landscape of generative artificial intelligence. My name is Hibatullah Bnatul Idrisi and I'm here joined by Hajar Kuhaili. We're here to launch this edition of the winter school. And we present a panel of experts, including the esteemed
Mr. Eric Shink, President at Mohammed bin Zayed University of Artificial Intelligence, Professor at Carnegie Mellon University, and Founder and Chairman of Pyramid.
We have also Mr. Mekales Bezarganez, Distinguished Professor at École Polytechnique, Institut Polytechnique de Paris, with expertise in natural language processing and graph neural networks.
Mr. Maxim Panov, Assistant Professor at Mohammed bin Zayed University as well, Senior Researcher at Technology Innovation Institute, and an expert in Bayesian statistics, regression, and adaptive designs of experiments.
We also have Mr. Benoît Bergeret, Executive Director at ESSEC Business School, leading the Meta Lab for Data, Technology, and Society, focusing on AI and data-led decision-making.
Mr. Gaël Richard, Executive Director of Hyperis, Head of Department Image Data Signal at Telecom Paris, and a prominent figure in the field of signal representation, machine learning, and multimedia analysis.
Normally, we have also Mr. Reda Bonas, the CTO at Sense for Data, but he couldn't join us, unfortunately.
So, today marks the beginning of our winter school, and what better way to kick it off than a roundtable discussion on the theme, Technology from Generative AI and Perspectives. But first, let's take a moment to demystify generative AI, that branch of artificial intelligence that empowers machines not only to process information, but also to create and generate new content.
Let's zoom in on a different aspect of GenAI, which is the large language models, or what we call LLMs. These linguistic models that learn to talk like people, like humans, understanding context to produce text that feels remarkably real. Imagine now these LLMs adapting to different languages, including the rich tapestry of Arabic. And with that context, let me introduce our three subtopics of this panel. We will be talking at first about adapting LLMs for Arabic, and we will be overcoming linguistic barriers and cultural biases.
Second, we'll talk about future implication of LLMs by exploring societal, ethical, and economic considerations.
And at last, we will be talking about generative AI and data security, addressing concerns this time about insensitive domains such as healthcare and finance.
Throughout this discussion, we'll explore various facets of each sub-teams, providing insights, sharing experiences, and addressing the challenges and opportunities within the field. We want this to be an engaging, interactive session, so we ask you, our audience, to pose your question at the end of each sub-team.
And without any further delay, thank you for being with us, and let's make this an enriching experience for all. Let's get started. Now, with over 30 different Arabic dialects spoken by more than 400 million people, this diversity shapes the path of technological progress in a big way.
Indeed, in the Arab world, we're witnessing exciting developments in AI. One standout example is Jace, an Arabic language AI system from the United Arab Emirates, created through collaboration between the ruling family, AI company G42, Mohammed bin Zayed University in Abu Dhabi, and Cerebras in California. Jace is a game changer. It's not just about precise and powerful Arabic, it also embraces the variety of local dialects. Importantly, it's been carefully tested to exclude any harmful content. Jace is set to play a significant role in various Emirati institutions, marking a big moment for AI integration into society. Beyond Jace, we also witnessed the emergence of other notable Arabic language models, such as Arabic Gemini or ChatGPT Arabic, each bringing its own distinctive capabilities and applications to the forefront of AI innovation.
However, as we celebrate these achievements, we must acknowledge challenges. One major problem is the limited linguistic resources available for many Arabic dialects. With over 30 distinct ways of speaking, adapting language models to Arabic requires not just only tech expertise, but also an understanding of regional variations. The journey to adapt language models to Arabic involves navigating through linguistic nuances, technical complexities, and cultural sensitivities. the diversity of Arabic dialects along with the need for precision and ethical considerations raises a crucial question. How do we overcome the challenges in adapting language models to Arabic while making the most of opportunities despite limited linguistic resources and potential technical and cultural biases? And with that, let's start the debate by the first question, and it is addressed to Mr. Eric Ching. To what extent do the limitations of available linguistic resources impact the performance of LLMs? And for example, in the case of Jace, how do you address this concern?
Yeah, thank you for the question. As Yana Kun just put it, right? So LLM is an autoregressive model. What it does is to really perform, random masking and prediction of the masking content. Therefore, the performance of a model like this heavily depends on data. And the Arabic language model is particularly suffering from this because there hasn't been yet, a very, very comprehensive and a massive effort, in creating Arabic language data set. Partly because, English has the advantage of being the dominant language in the World Wide Web and also has been digitized and used by a worldwide scale. And on the other hand, English is a relatively simple language. You only hear kind of maybe pronunciational dialects, but in terms of the writing and the usage, it is more or less uniform across the world. Arabic is a very, very sophisticated and difficult and elegant language. As far, and I'm not a linguist, but my knowledge, I was told that there are many, many forms of different dialects, both in speaking and also in writing, and also a huge amount of Arabic classical literature are still in their hard copy form, not even scanned, and also not digitized. I think right now, maybe the best, and most necessary approach to improve the performance and also enhance the cultural sensitivity and the fluency of Arabic language model is to begin scanning those very precious books, from libraries all over, the Arabic nations and also other places. There is a intrinsic difficulties there already. The OCR technology right now available isn't working very well, with Arabic language because the calligraphy, the form of this particular language is very, very unique and difficult. I think the provision of the first, truly functioning large language model can only be seen as a starting point and maybe an inspiration for this field to receive its due attention so that there can be a worldwide effort and coalition in producing the data together and sharing the data across the nation, and also to invite more scholars, not necessarily Arabic speaking, but of any mother tongue, to jointly look into this problem. Because one of the important properties in large language model is the so-called emergent property. When we train the first version of Jace purely based on Arab literature, the performance was actually not very good. Is that because the volume of data isn't big enough to even, empower a model of that size? But we made a decision to mix both English and the Arab together, unaligned, just to train them together, we see a huge performance bump. So that means there are some emergent properties happening during the training which cause knowledge translation and transfer from one language to the other. And that's why I believe, when we see language as a totality and also combining, information across different languages, that's another way to boost the performance of that, and also to really promote, cross-cultural understanding and also collaborations. I want to stop here and maybe invite more opinions from other.
Can I? Thank you, Eric. Very interesting. So I'm bringing a more maybe practitioner-oriented, pragmatic view of LLMs, and what I'm wondering, anybody who want to help me on that, would be to think, in the case of a business application of an LLM, do we really need the equivalent of a foundation model in Arabic, trained in Arabic? Or can we leverage something like Mistral Large, just came out, pretty good at multilingual, and then fine-tuning on, for instance, a data set made of business Arabic in corporations? Would that, in your opinion, be another angle?
If I may, but I believe Michaelis and you can have more inputs on that. Absolutely, the answer is yes. I think the high-quality foundation models like Mistral, like GPT, or the open source, Llama model, could actually be used and should be used to also improve and enhance the performance of other languages. As Jan just said, I like his analogy that when you ask a question in English or in French, it doesn't actually affect the mind, in his brain and how he thinks. Right? Same thing, to the language model. Right now, one of the non-obvious but the emerging way of using the large language model is to use it as a back end to be, the vehicle to do basic level reasoning based on inputs, transmitted from other vehicle. You actually could use a visual model or an audio model to tokenize the information and then translate them into a form that can be injected into the language model and utilize the language model as a rich reservoir of knowledge to do maybe, well, it's not real reasoning, but it is a more powerful form of autoregression that can make the connection between different words, right? And similarly, you can imagine, inputs from other language to be just another form of media carrying information into, a generically pre-trained model in English. Right? That's how I see, the model can be used. And of course, if you fine-tune, if you prompt, a smaller version of this large language model, people already are doing that all over the place. So I think there are a lot of opportunities on the apply side, for the large language model to still moving forward. Although I do agree with what has been said in the previous lectures that the basic architecture and also maybe the theory behind training foundation models or large pre-trained models will go past LLM to enter word models and agent models in the future. Maybe you want to add something?
I might, yes. I mean, pretty much everything has been said. The element that I would like to bring in is the local culture and the local ethics that are, in my opinion, not always transferred by doing translation, etc. So perhaps it is important that there may be instruction or fine-tuning tasks on local resources that reflect as well the local culture, the local ethics in this case. Specifically, we are trying now, if I may share, we are trying to, let's say, create a fine-tuning task for Darija, which is the local dialect, and this may be a contribution to adapting these models to the local, let's say, dialects. Because dialects are not only different, let's say, wordings of the same concepts, but sometimes they have or they bring adaptations of same concepts into local cultures.
Talking about these cultural nuances, we have a question about the performance metrics and cultural nuances. So the question is, how should the performance of Arabic LLMs be measured considering the cultural and linguistic nuances of different Arabic dialects? If you can answer.
You're addressing to me, yes. Okay. It is evident that I am not an Arab speaker, so my answers will be only figurative, perhaps. So, how to measure the quality of adaptation? Apparently, we need, instruction tasks, and we need humans that will create pairs of instruction and answers, multiple choice questions, but also generic tasks like logic or other types of tasks that should be instructed in the local dialects, with adaptations, of course, in the local culture. Apparently, what is considered funny in Darija is probably not considered as equally funny in the standard Arabic. Cynicism, irony, hate speech, they are different kinds of aspects that may be, let's say, measured. But in my understanding, as an initial thought, it is essential that we have instruction texts, instruction sets, and this means that we need serious involvement of local people.
You talked, Mr. Michaelis, about cultural diversity.
I want to add to that, as a very general notion, not only to Arabic language, but also other languages, is that if you notice the trajectory of the performance of the GPTs, one important aspect is that many people use it. And the more you use it, GPT actually collects the feedback. And then it actually is not static, it is self-improving. So I think one of the opportunity, in fact, for Arabic language model is to make it more accessible and usable, by people. And then the more you use it, the more data and the feedback you can generate from the user. It could be negative feedbacks, in fact. In fact, negative feedback is very important, to boost the performance. So that's kind of a organic life cycle, at least academically, shows a plausible path toward improvement of the performance. Because, instruction, it's a very limited data set that we artificially create. And one of the projects that we do, in the United States is called the chatbot arena. What is chatbot arena? It is really to put the chatbot, on the stage and invite people to score it and to use it. We use human to score it. The best evaluation of any kind of AI system is actually by human, not actually by, a artificial metric.
Thank you. Mr. Michaelis, you talked about diversity of culture. I'll be addressing my next question to Mr. Benoit. Again, in the context of language universality versus cultural specificity. And now, what do you think for commercial purposes and using prompt techniques, should the focus be on creating flexible models that go beyond cultural nuances, or is it crucial to demand models deeply rooted in the linguistic specifics of each region?
Thank you. That's an excellent question, and I won't have an answer. I will only have suggestions for the community here of doers and users and future doers. There's always this tendency when we look at technology to project one end result, which in our case today is very much, and Jan said it clearly, everybody has somehow AGI in mind, like the universal tool that would answer anybody. Again, with my particular bias, which is that of a practitioner, I think the future of LLMs is not so much about AGI. It's much more about a multitude of implementations, some of which will require very fine cultural sensitivity. Others will need, on the contrary, to be very much rooted in common facts, knowledge, and rid of these cultural specificities. So I think the answer is a non-answer. It's like we're going to need both, and it's interesting to pursue all of these.
Thank you. To follow up to this question about either developing LLMs in one language or various dialects, we have a question about even the utility of developing Arabic LLMs. Which means here in Morocco, we use LLMs in, I'll say between students in English or French, and maybe also in the in other Arab countries. So our question is about: is it really useful to develop this Arabic LLM?
Sorry, can you repeat the last sentence?
I said, is it very useful for us and for you to develop these Arabic LLMs, while we can use them in English and French?
Well, I think for me the answer is obvious, that it's of course very useful to have for many reasons, because depending on the country, not all the citizens, they speak the languages you mentioned, so that's very important to adapt to the local people. And also we just spoke about this cultural difference and so on. If we completely focus on mainstream languages, then we'll just lose all these cultural nuances. I think it's extremely important to invest not only in Arabic but other smaller languages, I would say.
If I can just make a small parallel with music, because it's about the same problem, but it's a different domain where it may be more visible that it's a problem if you don't develop a LLM for Arabic language. If you develop a generative AI music system and you only train on Western style music, all the concepts that you will try to learn and all the data is Western style music, so everything which is learned from the data is Western style. All the concept or even the features or the rules or the models you will build around that will try to model Western style music content. Then the machine will never be able to generate Arabic style music or help composer of Arabic style music to bring new ideas or new elements for composing. In any case, the machine will only be suitable to generate Western style music. And if people willing to listen to our Arabic music or to compose Arabic music are willing to just not using the generative AI because they only generate properly Western style music, it will be a problem. And I guess it will be the same type of problem with LLM. Then you may lose your language if you only use French and English.
I agree.
And just to add something, if we agree that the future of generative AI is individualized agents, I don't see the population using these agents by typing on their touchscreen, right? It will be mostly vocal interface, and some of them won't speak French or English or Spanish or Chinese. So yes, we need these Arabic language LLMs for sure.
Maybe I want to even add a little bit more from the academic research standpoint. I remember recently Jensen, in one of the conferences said that every country deserves a sovereign LLM for various reasons, for cultural reason, for political reason, and for economical reason. In fact, there's also a reason of scientific research. We need more brains and very diverse, different brains to do the science. I can imagine technically it is not impossible in theory that sometime in the future there could be one gigantic, very powerful model that is fluent with every language and every culture and everything. But I'm not sure that that part can be reached without first having this diverse collection of different specialized language models or AI systems to show the way to explore from different angles. Otherwise, if you only want to start from, say, a mainstream language like English and French and ask to diverge, it is going to be nearly impossible because you already are putting yourself into a box, and it is very hard to even reverse the statistics of coming from the major center of gravity into something peripheral. Only if there are balanced effort from all these different efforts and the advocations and user experiences, you kind of add new evidence, into the mainstream model to kind of create, a construction or create a regularization such as what Yang just put on it.
Yeah. And if I may add another couple of aspects, Arabic is, of course, again, I confess my ignorance, but from my environment that we have Arab speakers, there are specificities in the Arab language. There is diacritics, for instance. The form of the language is quite different to the Western ones. So these diacritics, they are small signs that change totally the pronunciation and the meaning of the words. So this is a morphological feature that needs to be taken into account in the training, in the fine-tuning. Moreover, there are different cultural aspects like the Arab poetry, that as far as I know it is very important for cultural and religious, let's say, aspects, and it is very highly considered among the educated Arab population. I am not sure if this is the case with English, at least at the international level. So doing these fine-tuning tasks and training local specific models is important. Moreover, I would like to second on an aspect that Eric mentioned about the potential huge language model that will speak all the languages and will understand all cultures. This incremental part that, as you said, it moves the center of gravity from the central languages to the periphery. There is a potential threat there because we know there is this phenomenon of catastrophic forgetting. So perhaps the safest way is to go first with local models and then with mixture of experts, probably.
Thank you, Mr. Recades. Thank you, dear panelists. And now I'll let the audience ask their questions if anybody has a question.
Hello. While I really acknowledge the high value of existing LLMs in Arabic, like Jace, RT5, Albert, and so on, I really don't agree with the fact that we deal with Arabic as we deal with English or with French. I remember when I was in high school, first time I studied English, I have had a very hard time understanding and speaking English. And that's because in English we don't it's not always logical. How we learn to speak English? By listening a lot of English. So it's like masked language modeling. We listen to a lot of English and we'll automatically be able to speak English. But Arabic, on the other hand, is very logical. It has very strict rules, and even we have the Nahu, which is a branch that really deals with the Arabic language as science. And so we prove some kind of properties with logic. And so it is really suboptimal to handle Arabic as we do with other languages like English. So my question is, for example, Mr. Singh, you work a lot on Arabic LLMs. Is it on your plan to incorporate such linguistic features of Arabic in the future? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not an Arabic speaker, so I probably sound like very amateurish in my answer. The answer is absolutely. We do want to invite. It's actually essential for us to have, Arabic speaking scholars who think in Arabs and produce, their thoughts in Arabs to be part of the language model creation, which is not the case, unfortunately. We do have people who can speak Arabics, in our team, but we need more. So that's one thing. And also, I think due to economical and cultural reason, as I mentioned, the digitized, Arabic language material right now is insufficient. So we need to actually have a multinational collaborative effort to really, first scan all the books. This is not even done yet, right? So I do think, once we, get our insight into more volume of the Arabic language in all different forms, I'm positive that news discovery can be made, and also the biases or the imbalance between English and Arabic language, even inside this model, can be shifted down the road. This is very much hoped for. So, in fact, I'm coming here also partly for this inspiration. I do want to invite all of you, to join, the effort of contributing to modern-day large language models and make the Arabic language well represented, in this entire ecosystem of LLMs.
I just want to, inspired by this answer, somebody might argue, yes, but we have so much online content by social media, etc. It is well known that training a high-quality LLM, you need high-quality data, high-quality text, and this high-quality text is apparently insufficiently in the books that have not been digitized yet, because the speech that we have on social media is very partial, is very short, is usually with a lot of noise. It represents only the language of today, and it is important to, let's say, have the long-term knowledge and text that has been not digitized yet. Also, I agree with you, every language brings a different logic. You said, English is not logical. If we had an English native person here, he or she might argue against that. I believe every culture is expressed via the language, and the language is a bearer of the logic. Moreover, if I may use my Greek origin, logic is coming from the word logos, and logos means speech. So speech expresses the local logic.
Well, maybe I could also use this opportunity to really advocate, a government and also private sector involvement. Digitizing, scanning the books is actually a very expensive project. The reason you see, more English literature and classic literature being, scanned is actually also an economical problem. I knew that there are, a huge volume of books, in libraries in Egypt, in Iraq, and maybe also in Morocco and other Arabic-speaking countries. But they basically are sitting on the shelf right now. It really requires, a major effort from the government and the private sector to invest in actually scanning those books and also properly digitizing them. So I'm hoping to use this platform to advocate that effort.
Is there any other question?
Hello, I wanted to ask a question actually regarding this difference in languages. As we know, like the data was, for example, this model was trained based on can actually make, for example, two different models give two different answers based on the data it gives. So my question is, does this actually is concerning regarding the credibility of the answer with the language change?
If I may take the question, if I understand well, what you imply is that the semantics of the words are shifting over time because we change the way that we speak.
Yes, exactly.
Because, for example, now when we tested more than one model, the way that it gives answer, for example, I tried it in both Arabic and English for some, for example, some historical events, for some, especially for this, because I think it's actually coming from, I don't know, some specific resources, and this actually leads to a whole different story idea, you see. So I wanted to know, actually, is this something that can be, I don't know, in terms of information credibility? This is my question. Like, could we overcome it by, for example, keeping the language as like separate out of the information itself? But of course, making any language accessible for any user preference.
I sense that there are two aspects in your question. One is the hallucination aspect, where there is factual errors. For instance, I don't know who is the president of France, and then it gives you a wrong name, right? Exactly. On the other hand, you have the different meanings of the words, the different senses that are depending on the context. As we mentioned in the morning talk, the word bank may have 2 or 3 different meanings. The word Python may have 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 different senses, depending on where and how we use it. So this second problem is tackled upon with the contextual embeddings that create essentially for every token, they create one vector, and then if we have many such vectors for the same token in the same, let's say, broad small area, this makes a sense, and the sense is represented by the neighboring tokens. For the hallucination, I think it's a much more difficult problem. Hallucination is because of the way or the data that have been given as training to the LLM. Recently, there is this method which is called RAG, which is essentially using information retrieval from external sources to augment the answer of an LLM. This is what I would imagine as an answer.
Thank you.
To add to that question, in fact, you raise a very, very good, important, and sensitive question, which is how people should interact with a large language model. Right? For example, when we interact a tool, like a car, or some devices, and you see a malfunction, basically it is malfunctioning, and you either fix it or you throw it away and seek some other solutions. So if your goal, with the large language model is to seek a factual answer, then usually the space for ambiguity is very small. But if your goal for interacting with the LM is to have a conversational experiences, to find a companion, then there is a large room of ambiguity and mistakes and so forth. Yeah. But on the other hand, if you take the LM itself just as a chatbot, as a tool without personality, without any real kind of emotion, or human-centric kind of intention, people usually could actually walk away if you see an answer that is obviously wrong, or meeting your expectation. So I would say that human civilization or human being always co-evolve with the tool, right? And in the good old days, maybe every individual is, in some sense very strong, good at running and walking and exercising, but nowadays we do less because we have the tools to do it for us. With the arrival and the popularization and the evolution of the large language models, I believe, humans being, we as a social, agent, will also change our ability to coexist with such a tool, including our judgment, our sensitivity, to the behavior of those tools. So I think that part, once you take into consideration, you will probably see, not a black and white answer to whether a chatbot or a LM is good and bad, functioning or not functioning, but really, a continuous evolution, which involves human being, we as the user, to be part of the solution as well.
So due to time constraints, we'll take your question afterwards. Now we move to the second sub-theme, which is the future of LLMs. Despite the challenges they face, which may slow down their development but not hinder it, let's now delve into the future of these large language models, exploring their potential in generating images and videos. Beneath the surface excitement lies a potential danger, the use of our personal data.
The use of our personal data, while seemingly enhancing the capabilities of language models, poses a significant threat to our privacy and security. As these models become more and more sophisticated, the risk of manipulation of sensitive information becomes a pressing concern. It is imperative to carefully navigate to the evolving landscape of LLMs to ensure that technological progress do not compromise the integrity of our privacy and our personal data.
Indeed, we can give the example of Google's generative AI strategy, where several issues emerge. First and foremost, the lack of transparency in the functioning of these advanced language models raises concerns. These models make it challenging for the public to understand how decisions are made and content is generated. On the other hand, the weaponization and misinformation potential of generative AI pose serious threats. Malicious actors could exploit these models to produce false narratives, deepfakes, or other forms of disinformation, amplifying the challenges already faced in the era of fake news. It is crucial to establish robust safeguards to prevent the misuse of AI technology for harmful purposes.
Job displacement due to the increase in automation by AI is also a major concern. As tasks get automated, there is a risk of people losing jobs. It's crucial to think about the impact on society and ethics, finding ways to train and adapt workers for new jobs. Biases in AI, like those in LLMs, can make existing inequalities worse. So we need a commitment that consider diverse views and actively fixing biases in how we develop AI. It's a bit worrying when big tech companies have too much control in AI, and I think, including Google. We need to find Google a good balance that encourages new ideas. There's also a concern about some serious risks. As LLM gets smarter, we're worried about unintended problems, even risks to people. And to handle these worries, we just need some clear rules and good oversight.
Indeed. Questioning the impact of Google's AI on society prompts and needs for responsible development, this lays the groundwork for our central inquiry. How do the continuous advancements of LLMs, particularly when they are consolidated on a large scale by major corporations like Google, impact society in terms of societal and ethical concerns? So let's start again our debate. And for the first question, it is for Mr. Gael. What ethical consideration arise when LLM-generated content influences public opinion and perception of societal issues?
Okay, so that's a very broad question, and it has, of course, many impacts. So to illustrate maybe my answer, I will take again the example of music, because it will be a good parallel. So, for instance, you have an excellent machine, a huge machine that can produce music. So as a large language model here, it's a large music model. And then it produces music. It has several problems. It produces music using data, and all the data has copyright. They have owners, they have composers, and they should be paid for that, for their music has been used. So music is produced, and the first problem is that you don't know which data is used. Maybe it has not been used, your own composition. Maybe it has, and you don't know. So in this problem, there is two problems. Is that first, you don't know if it has been used, and second, you don't know which authors have been used. The second problem is that the music produced may, if by chance, be completely new, which means that it's a completely new music that has never been heard, and that no one can claim the ownership of this music. But most of the current model are more or less generating music that already exists, which means that most of the models generate music or sequence of notes which you can find somewhere in the database, which is a problem because then you should again have the problem of who is owning the music and who is producing. The third problem is that you produce music very easy. You put all this music on internet or on the streaming platform, and then the streaming platform is let's say playing this music for users. The users pay for listening to music, and they listen to music generated by computers, but they don't even know it. And this is another problem of ethics, is that the streaming platform is playing music which has been generated by music, but they don't inform the users that they are listening to music which is automatically. So there is a third problem of ethics, is that you don't know that it's fake. And I think it's the same problem with the fake images and all the other aspects of fake audio. And all this is problems. And if I also maybe take another, and it's very difficult also when you have a music generated by a computer currently to realize that it's, or to automatically recognize that it has been generated by a machine. So in fact, I think it will be important that there is some way, some mechanism that inform that such data has been used, such data has been directly used to produce this music, and that the user is always informed that this text or this music has been produced by a machine. And this is, I think, very important. And if I may give another example about the displacement of job or the impact on societal, for music, you have composer are a bit afraid of this generative AI music, because the machine are going to compose music instead of them. And some of the composers are very upset. Some others are very excited because it's a new tool. And if you think generative AI as a tool to give you ideas, to give you possibilities, but then the real composition is still done by the human, then you also solve this problem of ethic with music generated by AI. Okay, just a few thoughts around your question. I'm not sure I completely answered your question because I talked about music, but it's kind of parallel.
Thank you.
On job displacement, maybe I can bring a real-world example, because I always like to shift from the fearful understanding of what this does. But job displacement could actually be good, be something you wish for. In 2018, I set up the AI lab for a major French corporation dealing with transportation, namely Vinci Autoroute. And one of the first projects we did was to dramatically improve the classification of vehicles that go through the toll booth, right? Because the error rate was way too high. It was about 2.5% error rate. And by using machine learning, a deep learning-based system that we trained on images, we managed to cut that by about 50, cut down the error rate. Why am I mentioning that? It's because every time there was an error, so a complaint from a customer, whether they were at the booth ringing the bell or afterwards saying, hey, there was a mistake, I paid €2 too much, the company was paying a lot of money in person time to fix that for very tiny amounts, so it didn't make sense. But also the job to fix these claims was terribly boring. People had to do that by going and look at the video and assess, etc. And so when we cut by this enormous factor, this number of errors. What we did is we removed the need for over 90% of these tasks, but not these people. And so they go from a main job that they had, and a part of it was a very boring part, to fully being able to do their real job. And in a lot of situations, it's going to be like that. These systems are going to help automate certain tasks that today some people are, define themselves around, but that are not what they wish they were doing. In my conversations with CEO of large companies, I always highlight the responsibilities, because I think the solution to that is not just on the technology side, it's also on the organization side, is please anticipate which tasks you're going to automate and plan for the upskilling of the people. So, instead of job displacement, I'd like to talk about tasks replacement, which is opening up a lot of value.
I do want to chime in to also discuss the fear about LLM replacing jobs. So here's my 2 cents. Every new technology was actually invented to replace jobs. Otherwise, we don't do invention. But it's really about see both ends of the equation. On the one hand, they eliminate some jobs. Why not? If your laundry machine can do laundry for you, why you need to do laundry, right? But on the other hand, it creates also jobs, and also it frees people to do more things. That's the way you see any new invention. For example, photographer, after it's invented, it does eliminate many professional painters who does portrait, right? But then, the painters, find a way to be more expressive and creative. Impressionism, Cubism, all this new form of art was actually invented after the photography was invented. Now, in fact, there is also one more thing I want to share, a story I heard from the AI minister of UAE, Omar. The printing press, and also its implication on job elimination, and also, advancement of technology. Printing press was invented, in the, around the time of Renaissance, in 15th or 16th century. And in the West, the West European countries, there wasn't a very powerful central government, and the church, didn't like the printing press because they were afraid of every people have a Bible, so that they lose their authority of interpretation, but they cannot stop it. So the printing press became widespread, and as a result, not only they print Bibles, they print also the books, which actually leads to the new age of enlightenment and cause people to read, to be knowledgeable, and to think. Now, in the empire of the Ottoman Empire, the Sultan was banning basically printing press for a very, very good reason, because the Arabic language has a pretty daunting undertaking of copying books using calligraphers. And these calligraphers has a very good social status and are having very good income, and these are very important jobs for many, many people. And the leader of the country are afraid of hurting the interests of these people. Therefore, he banned the printing press. But after 200 years, you can see that yes, those calligraphers kept their job, but the society paid a huge cost in losing the opportunity to be enlightened and to move on to a new paradigm of knowledge creation, and also to be more productive. So I want to share this historical lesson, which triggered the last, major civilization advancement called Enlightenment. Now we are in the age of empowerment. You have this AI function, which really now makes the accessibility of vast knowledge, a lot easier and maybe even trivial. If for the sake of keeping some jobs, this technology is kept out of people's hand, it will actually cause the risk of this community to miss the opportunity of be more competitive and be more creative in the global stage of competitions and economic developments.
If I may add, I mean, following Eric's line of thought or chain of thought, I agree the AI tools are a huge advancement. I mean, tasks that were unimaginable 3 years ago, now they are everyday practice. Of course, the idea is that these chatbots are in the hands of a few companies. So in this sense, power concentration is huge in very few players that are sometimes beyond governments, in my understanding. So keeping this knowledge open source is of very high, let's say, crucial importance. Of course, some people will lose jobs, but other jobs will be created. For instance, there is prompt engineering, which is already a legitimate job. Interacting with these LLMs is crucial, and the way that we do prompting is significant. Of course, there are risks. There is privacy risk. There is, of course, can we generate data that can identify patients that have been treated in a hospital? No, we cannot do that. So there are, or can we deal with the idea of ethics? For instance, ethics are important, but they are also local. What is ethical in Marrakesh is probably not the same type of ethics in Paris, for instance. So this is a challenge, I think, and this is why we need to have diverse models that will reflect local ethics.
There's one thing I think that is a nice umbrella framework when we think about the risks of generative AI. Machine learning as a whole. Eric mentioned the printing press. While he was explaining the revolution brought by the printing press to society, I was thinking electricity, same. I was thinking the steam engine, same. Fire, the wheel. As it happens, all these technologies, because they share a number of common characteristics, are grouped under a concept. They're called general purpose technologies. And I find that as a very important framework when I think about these things, because they all carried the same kind of risks. We didn't have a global conversation about them, but as humanity, we managed to navigate through errors and mistakes and adoption, and to bring really the better good, hopefully. There might have been other scenarios, but the one so far for electricity isn't too bad if you don't consider the environmental impact of electricity generation. So I encourage you to look at GPT, general purpose technology. You'll find the list of what is required for a technology to, have this status, and keep that in mind when you think about the risks and everything.
Thank you. So we talked already about finding ways to contribute to the spread of misinformation. I'm now asking Mr. Eric, in what ways actually do LLMs to contribute to the spread of misinformation and disinformation, and how can this be mitigated?
Well, misinformation and disinformation exists ever since civilization started, right? So it's not a new thing. And what makes the LLM standing out is because the speed of production and the volume of production, is unprecedented. I think it's an open problem that one needs to pay attention to. I don't have an answer, to be honest, for now, but I actually do think that's the very reason that the AI research needs to continue and to be further advanced rather than being regulated. In many of the recent government and academic venue, there has been heavy debates about how to regulate AI and how to do risk management. The truth is that there is a nuance balance between regulating a product or a function versus regulating the research or a science. You never regulate biology or regulate chemistry because they produce a negative outcome. You regulate, for example, a particular poison material or a dysfunctioning machines, right? So I think in AI we are still in a very early age. The amount of misinformation right now is indeed alarming, especially for example in the United States. The election right now is heavily impacted by factors from both parties who fanfare some form of misinformation. But I think the way to counter that, one is to manage and legislate appropriate rules for the platform to take responsibility and accountability, right? So it is the platform, not the research institution, that should be accountable for that. And the other, of course, is to really educate the general public. I found that the AI education in the general public is lagging far behind the speed of advancement of AI itself. Many people don't actually know what is AI and also how to really interpret the outcome from AI, right? I think once you really just like the search engine, when it was rolled out 20 years ago, people worried about, anybody can search a formula to make a bomb, to make a dangerous chemical compound, and so on. Well, it happened very rarely, but it's not becoming a hazard, to the society. I think right now the discussion of AI, harmness and risk and so forth, still need some time to really be substantiated and establish a real risk. Right now, I think many of the risks we discuss is hypothetical, it's very abstract, and regulation has to be built on realized risk and materialized risk. So I don't have an answer to specific your question. I think it's case by case. If the misinformation, for example, come from Twitter, come from any social media platform, there's a way, for example, to regulate them. Just like now that we don't see cigarettes sold in all the places, unless you put some kind of a logo or put some type of prints. Yeah, as you just mentioned, every digital production, in theory, can be watermarked, can be labeled, can be traced. It's really about whether the government or whether the company wants to do that or not. And that actually is a policy problem rather than a scientific problem. So I think, as long as the discussion about risk management and regulation, make a distinction on what is the product, what is the platform, and what is the science, then conversation can happen in these different tracks to hopefully result in very different type of behavior and actions.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Maxime, pardon? Yes, sir.
I actually wanted to add on the previous, if I may.
Yes.
So I think that also currently, so Eric said that it's very important to advance the research in LLMs, not to be stuck in the current paradigms. And I want to mention also that in terms of fighting misinformation or hallucinations and so on, there is a lot of research currently going on from various perspectives, including comparing the outputs of models with databases or this retrieval augmented generation, and also what I will be partially speaking tomorrow in my lecture, I will be talking about how you can try to detect the possible hallucinations of the model from the fact that model is not confident in what it's producing in certain sense, and how you can probabilistically assess it. That basically one of the possible outcomes is that, probably models will always hallucinate to a certain extent, but possibly significant parts of these hallucinations can be detected in certain sense. Like imagine you have a text, so generated like a biography of some person, and then some facts might be correct and might be not, some might be not, and there can be serious issues because of that, because imagine school students are using this as a part of the tasks they have at homeworks and so on. And one possibility is to augment the model with certain tools which detect these hallucinations. Imagine you have a text which not just like a plain text as we get now, a GPT, or somehow highlighted. So you may look, please check this part of the text. I'm not confident in that. That's one of the possible ways, probably not ultimate way, but at least you can solve part of the problems with it.
Okay, thank you. We will continue with you for the next question, which is how do LLMs intensify existing societal biases and inequalities, and what measures can be taken to address these issues?
Well, the thing is that all these models, they learn based on text, and if these biases they exist in texts, then they inevitably come to the models. And again, speaking from a scientific point of view, there is currently a lot of research on fairness in particular. So how you can force the model to be fair in that sense. And I think, and actually this direction of research started very, very recently. I would say it intensified less than 10 years ago. And I think that that's both extremely important and interesting from research perspective, and we see many advances purely scientific and algorithmic which will allow to mitigate biases well. At least probably not fully, but in significant amount.
Yeah, if I may add to that, I think in solving bias and the imbalance, a human has to be in the loop. In fact, we talk to people all the time, and chances are your counterpart in the conversation can also hallucinate, can also kind of be biased, and I don't think we overreact. We actually either we know it, or we just conduct conversation accordingly, or we somehow converse further and eventually reach to a reconciliation, right? So if you have that level of guard, for every individual, and when they interact with a GPT, then you are just facing just another, interface, of information, right? So this is really, it's a relationship basically. If you choose to trust the GPT for everything, then you have a very, very high expectation on that. But why we need to trust that much, right? We read books and we read many things, and there is always a combination of the content that they need to be responsible, and also our own responsibility of vetting and also making our own judgment and conclusions. So as an educator, I really still want to advocate the importance of getting the general public more and more educated to really, be themselves and don't give up the responsibility and opportunity of having your own judgment and making your own decision, even when you are reading materials from other places. And that part cannot be replaced by having better and better GPT, because I can see a scenario where, they just repeat exactly what another hallucinating people is saying. Therefore, you are really now asking the machine to vet people rather than the machine. And that kind of a dilemma cannot be really, well-defined. So at the end of the day, it is every individual ourselves need to be ultimately responsible, for the impact of those information.
Yes, Mr.
Yeah, I like this angle a lot, but it brings something that is very obvious in autonomous cars. Humans tolerate imperfection in other humans, probably because of projection, right? Identification. But from systems, we have a mechanistic bias. We are influenced by the industrial era, where the output needs to be perfect every single time, or the machine is bad, right? And so how do you shift that judgment is a big area of focus for people like us to help users build trust with a level of imperfection. And one way to do that is to differentiate between technically what is biased and what is harmful bias, which is more subjective. And how do you educate the user to react to and declare harmful bias versus just plain. The example of the Google-generated images in Gemini, in the latest version of Gemini 1.5, with the Nazi soldiers pictures as Asian, black people, Arabic people, where we know there was no such. And the reaction to that was typical of this mechanistic approach and harmful versus non-harmful bias.
Thank you, sirs. That was all for the sub-team 2, and we're going back to your questions, starting with... I'll give.
So, thank you. So you said that you are going to fine-tune LLMs on Darija. So my questions are, which models are you going to fine-tune? Which data? Is there an open data source, an open Arabic data source? And another question, do you have an idea how many GPUs will you need to fine-tune for the training?
I believe this is, for me, the processor is ongoing. As I mentioned, you need to collect instruction data from people, and then you need to find out credible resources online. We are in the process, so I don't have, let's say, specific concrete answers, because this is an ongoing process. The only, that we are going to try to fine-tune Jace with the Darija dialect.
Only Jace?
This is the plan for the moment. Because Jace is one of the few models, if not the only, that has been created from the start with an emphasis to Arabic.
So, is it an open source, Jace?
Excuse me, there was...
Jace, is it an open source?
It is open source, yeah. Yeah, to add to what McKay just said, like a precondition, for fine-tuning is that the model has to be open source, at least the way it's published. And in fact, if you want to do a good job in fine-tuning and really know nuance, maybe you even want more, such as the checkpoints, and also the code itself. That's why we have the LLM 360, not only in just Jace, but also in many other English language models. Yeah. But the fine-tune is actually not necessarily a very expensive business. You can fine-tune with your personal laptop, if you have a couple of thousand, good instruction sets, right? And for a 7B, you can actually have a pretty, a visible impact on that. Yeah. But on the other hand, there is also a risk. If you fiddle with the model too much, you may have the catastrophic forgetting and all that things. It's an art at this point, and that's why I feel strongly about making the whole thing open source to really grow the community, to study not just the end outcome, but also the entire life cycle, so to understand how these kind of models, are behaving and how to augment their behaviors.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, sirs. First of all, I want to thank you for this interesting talk. I wanted to ask you about a small concern that I have, especially about the evolution, the high-speed evolution of AI, and how it can impact the education of young generation and the generations to come, especially the kids. Since we know everyone now uses AI, and I am very afraid about the use of AI in education. Do you think there is very dangerous, and it is one of the bad impacts of LLMs in the real life?
Well, I can jumpstart this answer. I'm sure that everyone have their own, thoughts about that. Yes, education, is about teaching people useful skills and also to think, right? But on the other hand, most institutions focus on the former. I teach you a bunch of skills, and the definition of skills actually evolve. Now, I don't think it is useful to teach you how to break a square root of some numbers, right? Because you can do that by calculators. And the LLM does actually change the landscape of education, and they should. Because, I've heard a lot of debates on whether you allow the students to bring a LLM, or an interface into exams, and so that they cheat, and so on and so forth. Well, my answer is a very pragmatic one. You cannot stop it. It will happen. Okay. And if that's the case, that really means that this part of a skill may not be essential for the students anymore because they can get it easily, from the LLM, right? But on the other hand, LLM does not think on your behalf and also does not help you to think, right? So I think it does, provide an opportunity for the educators to now rethink about how to design curriculums, which hasn't really been changing much in the past 100 or 200 years. It's just the book changed, but the way of teaching, the methodology of training and the evaluation hasn't really changed for over at least 100 or 200 years. I think that right now we are at this moment of redesigning our curriculum. For example, in some of the courses I taught, in Carnegie Mellon, I never worried about the LLM because the way to make the final examination is to complete a project, okay, to write a piece of software. And that has the necessary mathematics and also the necessary, process of gathering and process the data, and then to also, hopefully solve it, solve a real piece problem, and then to present it. There is no LLM as of now that is able to even define the problem, or maybe formalize the problem for you, from a real-world open challenge, right? So I think education in the future probably will rediscover itself to be needing to focus on way of thinking and the ability to discover problem, the ability to formulate the problem, then leaving the solving of the problems by and large to maybe LLMs if that solution is standardized or very, very trivial. Right now we focus too much on solving a given problem which actually exists already, the solution in the book. That part I believe needs to be at least reconsidered down the road. I will stop from here. I believe every one of you probably have a lot more to say.
I want before that to say, isn't it just a kind of illusion or a false sense of accomplishment that the kid or the young generation will get after using these tools? If they can accomplish a lot of tasks, but without these tools, maybe they cannot think like this. Okay.
Yeah, for example, prompt engineering is a very, very interesting skill that could be very inspirational. That it's like you have a encyclopedic agent that knows everything, but he is not very good at retrieving the knowledge for your needs. How you even talk to a agent to get what you want. I hope that this is interesting enough for the kids to learn a new set of skills. I'm just using an example, right? And also in physics and biology, there are other area where you can use a generative AI agent to design molecules, right? To create art forms, to compose, to realize maybe a musical or art idea, more visually or more audibly in front of you to experiment. So this opportunity of experimentation is unprecedented. In the past, it is very hard for us to experiment an idea, especially in creativity and in creating contents. Right now, you can use this AI agent to quickly draw a picture, compose a music, or design a molecule, design a compound for you. And then I think the life cycle or the iteration of creativity can be expedited.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. I'd like to bring a complementary perspective, Eric. I agree with 100% what you said. In my view, it's important to differentiate higher education from higher primary from basic education, because the goal and intent is not the same, and the students, the population isn't the same. In early education, the goal of education is really to prepare these young brains to the society they are going to live in and exist in, right? More so than later, where we are dealing more with specialization of already evolved brains. And I think your question was more about the earlier stage. So in that earlier stage, there would be an immense number of things you could look at that are not taught to young kids anymore, because society doesn't require them later to master these skills, because the tooling, cooperation, we live in a society where the initial unit was, I think, between 12 and 50 people, and each unit needed to cover everything, so everybody had to be pretty capable. And now you really don't need that, because you know society structure in a way where a lot of things will be done. So always match the needs of society with the stage of development. And when you think of it this way, of course, there's no need to teach now a 7-year-old kid to code. If they want to code, let them code. But to teach them the logic behind coding, I think is very important, because when they're going to learn to use all the tools, it's going to need activation of these parts of the brain. But I don't think LLM will have a big impact at that stage. I think LLMs are going to happen as personal assistants, exactly the same way the calculator appeared as a personal assistant, or the text processing, right? Who is doing any work by hand now? Nobody, whether it's calculation or writing your reports, etc. And so I see these as just another tool, and we as educators, we are going to adjust based on what we know to do, which is our core role, which is to prepare our students, depending on the phase they're in, to what society needs.
Hello, thank you very much. So my question is about what are the implications, because as you have said, the LLM, large language models, they have actually a lot of breaks, and it has implications. For example, in many domains. Because, for example, the bias, how to avoid bias when doing learning of the model, I give the example of autonomous cars and robotics, where if there are wrong decisions, it can have a very bad repercussion. So, for example, I take the example of reinforcement learning when it's very used in robotics. So that means if do you envision like shifting in concepts in large language models to avoid those problems and try to be more secure in the future. Thank you.
Maybe I can give a partial answer. Just at the beginning, autonomous car in the early system, the car was very precocious. So when the car was arriving at a roundabout, if another car was there, the car would not move. And then I think maybe it's Eric said that it's AI or LM. It's also an interaction, and here it's the same. What was not taken into account sufficiently is how the other car behave, and that if you want the car, autonomous car, to go in the roundabout and to be in the traffic, the car has to be not too precocious and has to be a bit unpolite, because the car has to force a little bit its passage, otherwise the car will never go into the roundabout if there are other cars. And this is also, I think it only partially answers your question, but you cannot only think the system in absence of its usage, in absence of the interaction with who is going to use the system. So you need to have this interaction and you need to have this usage interim. So I don't know if I only partially answer your answer, but it's just a forward.
I think any invention of new technology or adoption is like giving birth to children. There are some discomfort. It's a rewarding price to pay, for the advancement. That's usually how I see, my work. It's not going to be totally safe at the beginning, but as long as there is a constraint or maybe a pressure, that forms the feedback loop, to make your system better, but also taking some steps to experiment and take some risk.
I guess all the members of the panel here today advocated for the future of AI to be open source. So what would be some laws that you will suggest?
You mean suggest to make everything open source, or?
No, you suggested that the future of AI should be open source. So in that context, what would be some laws that you will suggest to safeguard against any mishaps?
Okay. Should I give it a shot? Yeah. Well, first, if you look at, for instance, the AI Act in Europe, which is making good progress, it's not about the technology so much as it is about the risks to what is defined as the European citizen, because they have a Bill of Rights, right? So you can do whatever almost on the technology side. It's what you're going to do with the technology that is being regulated. And that applies as much to the proprietary side than to the open source side. There's no reason why it should be differentiated. Of course, you have better ways to enforce on commercial operations, and open source could potentially be in the hands of entities or individuals who are hard to sanction, right? Because maybe you will never catch them in the open source. So that's the first aspect of my comment. The other aspect is I really believe there's a strong self-regulating nature to open source community, and I tend to trust that more than the commercial side. I don't know.
I want to add also that, I think the risk of AI, including the open source part, has somewhat been exaggerated at this point. Remember one thing, AI, in terms of its realization, is a piece of software. Okay, it's a piece of software. It's very different from, say, you invent a chemical compound, you build a nuclear bomb, or you genetically modify a species and make them into the crop. These are actually already innovations that is in our society. It's in the physical world, and we've come up with a long way to find out how to regulate them. And so far, they've been safe, I would say, by and large. And this AI products, which is a software, actually has more checkpoints than those other products in the physical world, because once they want to make a real harm, they have to realize that through agency. For example, they may, just like the internet, tell you a formula of building a nuclear bomb. Well, you need to get the materials. And if they give you a misinformation so that you vote, well, you need to vote. So it's actually, an indirect way of influencing human society in many ways. I'm not saying that they don't have a harm, but they also provide you extra layer of checkpoints. So I don't think, the widespread adoption of AI is going to get people into a excessive extra layer of risk. Our current regulation law practice and the system is actually doing a pretty good job in preventing material risk and also physical risk. I think, I would trust the current practice already, which stops many of the harm behavior and action in their last stage. I think what people are asking for is to even go further, into, the digital world, or in the the cybersecurity or the cyber world, which has been already, a long practiced kind of activity of the society. And the AI isn't really, I would say, challenging, our current practice, in a completely unimaginable and uncontrollable way. That's kind of my gut feeling. I think right now many of the discussions are not substantiated by a true evidence, or a true harm that we can actually measure. Say how many deaths because of AI, and how many, how much economic loss due to AI. I haven't seen such numbers yet. I think we should probably give some patience and see, are we really going to have those numbers? Or it's like the internet. People talk about it, and then after a few years, they go away naturally.
Thank you, dear panelists. Thank you, dear audience, for the interest in debate. Now, unfortunately, we won't be able to tackle the third subtopic, so we're going to conclude. We're going to conclude our roundtable by the journey through Arabic language models, and generative AI has revealed a landscape of incredible possibilities and for sure present challenges. So thanks to our panelists, to our participants, and to the Winter School for this insightful discussion. May our reflections today contribute to a future where AI benefits all while upholding privacy, security, and ethics values. Thank you for coming.
It's